What did the weird kid do to earn that reputation? There was this guy, K in class below me, who just ate everything. Once he went to the front of the classroom, where the sink thingy is, took a big stack of paper towels back to his place and just started eating it mid-lesson. Another time he drank a Capri Sun in class, and when he was finished he just ate the package with straw and everything. The weirdest thing was, when he ate a toy car the teacher brought to show something. He just sat in front of the teacher's desk, took the car from it, and swallowed it without saying anything. The weird kid at my school always claimed she was a wizard, and when someone spoke to her, when she was casting a spell screaming at the ground, she would turn around and either scream in their face or bitch slap them. I was new to the school at the time, and I got screamed at cause I was legitimately worried that she might be hurt or something. There was a girl in my school that got caught trying to color her entire tongue with a black Sharpie in like 7th grade. It was honestly surreal to witness. The teacher was so confused and just walked her to the principal. A few years later she was expelled for drinking during school on multiple occasions. He brought a live lobster to a middle school dance and let it go on the dance floor during the dance. Wasn't even a question of who would have done this. It was Nate. Nate did it. He thought he was a robot. Often you'd find him in the halls alone talking to electronics about destroying the human race, or having a conversation with a locker. Do a countdown to his farts, like they were a ducking moon launch. Pulled out his pubis or armpit hair one by one and ate them. Pulled out his pubis or armpit hair one by one. Me, yeah, that would do it. And ate them. Me, I regret reading this, and it's now seared into my brain. Dude would wear a stormtrooper costume and taped an old flip-up phone to his arm and pretend to talk through it. This was an HS. He was particularly odd because he was like a born genius, so he'd often get bored in class and get up to some weird shit. Set his arm on fire on a school trip to France. Sprayed his arm with deodorant for about a whole minute before getting someone to light it. It wouldn't go out until he used the tap in the bathroom to douse it with water. He ended up with blisters and permanent scarring. So the school trip ends and we go back to school the week after. All of a sudden me and 4 other kids get pulled into a classroom to be questioned by police and the head teacher. He basically told his mum that we did it to him. Obviously this did not stick, as we all had the same story. If I had Facebook I would look him up, see how life is for him nowadays. There were so many examples, but this one stuck out to me. There were twin boys in my high school who were just odd. We were in Spanish class together, and the teacher had this habit of making beeping sounds to get the attention of students who were talking, etc. So one day that's happening and the teacher goes, beep, 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 and one of the twins shouts, fires air missiles, crawls under his desk and runs out of the room. I thought it was so funny I about fell out of my chair laughing. Dressed as a pirate every day for 8 years. Legit said he was leaving rural me to move to the Caribbean and become a pirate. Changed his name to Black Badrian. We had that horse girl. She always pranced around like a horse. Would snort in surprise. That sort of thing. In grade 5 and 6 she always wanted to play horses. My friends and I told her that was so lame. Then we would go off to play wolves instead. Raised his hand, and when the teacher called on him to answer his question, he started singing Freya Jacks. He had a notoriety for shitting his pants at least once a day and was super casual about it. I remember I was behind him in the hall one day when I saw a massive turd plop out of his short legs. He looked back at it and just kept on strutting. Collected earthworms when it rained in the pouch of his hoodie, and then laid them out in the schoolyard, spelling his own name. He cried when he saw that it had been scraped from the pavement the next day. By that time he was around 13. Predictably, people we started calling him Wormkid. He got expelled around a year later for throwing a fistful of earth at a teacher. Edit to elaborate on him having to leave the school. This act of dirt tossing happened inside of a classroom at close proximity. When he'd been called to the blackboard during a Latin lesson. I'm from Europe. The teacher completely lost her shit. The moist soil was all in her hair. And she later said a couple of live beetles and little pebbles or bone splinters were also found in that mix. Though I can't say whether that's true. When we were about 15, Harrison, we were all addressed by our surnames, decided one day to wrap his penis in adhesive tape during a biology lesson. I can't remember why, nor how he managed to remove it, but I was impressed. He also held the record for stabbing into the desk between each finger of his outstretched hand with a compass, a very sharp point, as fast as possible. Despite hitting a finger at least once, he later became a distinguished surgeon. A girl had developed much earlier than everyone else. She had like double D's and severe acne in grade 6. She used to act out weird scenes from TV shows by herself at recess. She was the type who told everyone she had a BF who had a Porsche, but went to a different school again. We were like 12. People made fun of her for the usual things and shit she did, but one day things took a dark and strange turn. Some girl named Katie said something to her in line after lunch, and she lost it. She smoked Katie with her flute case and then hit some other kid who wasn't saying anything. She then spit chocolate milk all over a teacher who asked what was going on. Everyone was pretty shocked, but then she proceeded to sit down on the ground, started to cry, and pissed her pants right there. The ground was kinda sloped away from the school, so the puddle formed and then created like a stream of piss all the way to the field, maybe 15-20 feet. Everyone just stood there in shock at how many things had just happened in the span of 90 seconds. A girl in my year at school told us that she has a ghost in her bedroom, and it told her that if she didn't brush her teeth it would burn her house down. Another girl said she wanted to have sex with our headmaster, but she was like 7 at the time, and she used to scratch people in the face like a cat. I held the door open for her once, and she flipped me off and called me a ducking bitch. Ate a battery in class. Pissed in a bottle on a bus full of 60 kids. Chipped his tooth sucking on a Tajin packet. All his siblings are named the same name, Martin. He was very into the fantasy of war games. He would get super excited when anyone would play along with him. We had over 5,000 students in the school and many people knew about him and would pretend to shoot at him for a laugh due to his antics. It all had to stop when someone pretended to shoot him with a bazooka and he jumped backwards down a flight of stairs from the explosion. Someone who is still unknown ran through the school with nothing on but a Spider-Man mask. He ran down the longest hallway we had, a quarter-mile long, willy flopping in the wind, and no teacher or monitor could stop his majestic run. He was known for doing a ton of odd shit, but the only one I personally saw was when he ate a piece of gum that was stuck to the bottom of a kid's shoe. This was in high school. This was in 6th grade. She told everyone she was raised by wolves, would draw a paw print on her palm to show as proof, howled during recess, and would growl at the younger kids. There were times when she'd chase around the younger kids and they looked to be having fun, so I guess that was fine. But then she'd hide under the playground thing to meditate, but she was really peeing herself. Then she'd come back out and continue to chase the kids. She also smelled really bad, like the whole classroom stunk. Teacher pulled her aside a few times and asked about her hygiene, but nothing changed. Plot twist, she really was raised by wolves. I was the president of an improv club at my high school. The weird kid was a member. Now, remember that episode of The Office when Michael would interrupt every improv scene as a cop? It was like that, except this kid always had an evil dark magic theme. Characters in the scenes turned out to be his evil brother from the Dark Outlands. Imaginary props would turn into mythic swords formed from shadows. But this kid was so desperately unpopular, no one had the heart to kick him out of the club. Wore the same blue dress every single day to school. Sat in the hall by herself during all class parties. I knew she was a Jehovah's Witness, but it wasn't today I learned I was older that I understood what that meant, and how isolating it must have been for her as an 8-year-old and up, the only one in a tiny farm town, with nobody even wanting to sit by her on the bus. I still feel it in my gut when I think about her from time to time. 5 decades later, She never did anything to any of us. Sorry, Ramona. In 4th grade this kid brought metal Chinese throwing stars to school and started throwing them around the classroom. He was gone for about a week, then a few weeks after that he pulled out some nunchucks and hit a girl in the face. We didn't see him the rest of the year. 5th grade starts and there he is. It was show and tell and he brought in a small pet turtle. He was in front of class and he took the turtle out and said, "My turtle does tricks. Look, he can break dance." He then put it on its back and spun it like a top. It went flying off the stool onto the hard ground and landed on its shell. He was called Turtle or Turtle Boy the rest of school until he disappeared in junior high. This was in the 80s. Wonder how he turned out. Weird ducker. He would go around asking people if you knew an alien that looked like X, Y, Z, and you really loved them, would you have sex with the alien? Alien description changed a lot from question to question, and if you answered him, he would keep asking the questions with different types of aliens. Key point being that you always shared an emotional connection with the alien. Poor kid was just trying to sort out his own alien fetish, I think. Just Ben 10 trying to find a date. The weird kid in my year started out as basically a meme. He was odd, socially isolated, talked to himself a little, nerdy, terrible at sports, cannon fodder for the popular crowd. We were and still are friends though. Freshman year a joke starts going around that he should be prom king. Nobody takes it too seriously, but it's considered funny. French teacher picks it up and supports it. 4 years later he's been so heavily memed everyone loves him, and he gets elected homecoming king. In high school a kid had upper teeth like a horse, always out of his mouth, and never brushed them. When a teacher was doing roll call and said if we had nicknames or alternate names we wanted to be called, his name was Colt, and he said, "I want to be called Shadow like an edgelord." He always never did schoolwork and instead watched Pokemon in class and played Pokemon while walking around the halls. He never washed his hands after going to the washroom, and multiple times I heard him moaning in the washroom stalls about different Pokemon and trainers, such as Gardevoir, Lopunny, Leafeon, Misty, Jessie, and a lot more. Every so often you'd also see him choking his chicken in the middle of class while staring at either the teacher or some girls in the class. Got into a fight with someone because he thought he was tough and wanted to show off to a girl. Also never showered. This was all in grade 12. Also would like to mention, I'm not bashing Pokemon. I ducking love Pokemon. This kid in elementary school who had to be first at everything. And no, I don't mean like super competitive in sports or whatever. I mean he had to be first in line, first in school, first out, etc. He would be in front of the school before it even opened to students. 6:30 am. Class started at 7 am, waiting for that clock hand to touch 6:30 so he could sprint in and sit first in his class. He would sit near the very front of the class so he could be first in line. He would always, without a doubt, raise his hand as soon as the teacher asked a question to the class. Most of the time, he didn't even know the answer. The teacher would pick him and he'd start frantically looking for the answer or would make up shit. As soon as class ended, he would sprint across the whole school so he could be the first out the doors. Here's some more weirdness. Every day during recess, he would always hang out right next to the fence line closest to the school. As soon as the teacher would blow the whistle, he'd be right there immediately. The teacher would tell everyone to turn in their homework from the night before in this basket thing. He'd grab it and book it to go, turn it in first. Problem was the basket was on the opposite side of the classroom. Remember, he sat up front. More often than not, I remember some poor solo chair or desk getting in his way and getting trampled. He would always be the first to finish his tests or quizzes. I never really paid attention to his grades, but I assumed he did fine, since he never failed a grade. I remember blazing though a math test. As soon as I stood up to turn it in, he jumped in front of me and handed in his test first. I don't even know if he finished it. That boy better be an ace driver now. I just realized this was like 20 years ago, and I still remember him in great detail. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see more of Reddit universe,